Raising high his storm shield ramparts as he swings the Fist of Dawn, Lysander wades through his foes like a warship smashing through stormy seas. Each hammer blow reduces enemies to bloody ruin, sweeping whole ranks of warriors from their feet, all the while Lysander's obstinate scowl never wavers. His determination absolute. Hello there and welcome to this paint guide. Today we're looking at Darnith Lysander. He's a truly awesome model and is actually one of my favourite Space Marine characters, so let's waste no time and jump straight in. The paints I'm using are on screen now. There is quite a lot, but it's totally up to you if you use them all or skip some steps. After all, some of these colours are for highlight and I know they're not for everyone, so it's your call. And here's also a list of the additional equipment that I'll be using. Right, so first up, before we begin, I've built my mini in sub-assemblies. You don't have to do this, but I find that it makes painting much easier and is worth the extra faff for centerpiece models and characters like this guy. Anyways, with that said, I've undercoated each sub-assembly piece with Wraithbone spray. So that's the main body, the shield, and the cloak all in Wraithbone. I'll be painting them each separately, starting with the main body. If you don't have Wraithbone, both White Scar or Grey Seer spray would also work, but you will be left with a slightly different result depending on what you go for. And that's because, for the armour, I'm using the aptly named Imperial Fist. Now, because this is a contrast paint and is quite transparent, which undercoat spray you choose will affect the end result. Wraithbone has more of a yellowish colour to it compared to the others, so it's perfect for this scheme. I'm using a small base brush to carefully apply the paint section by section. Apply loads at once and manoeuvre it around. Keep loading the brush up with paint as you go and work your way around the mini until you're done. Also, try your best to avoid the details that we'll be painting white later, like this Crux Terminatus. And there we are, this Imperial Fist character is already looking awesome in his iconic yellow armour. Let's move on. Next, I want to add some deeper recess shading and vibrancy to the armour, and for this I'm using Cassandora Yellow. I'm mixing in a little Lamia Medium first and then applying it all over the yellow armour. This will make it look nice and defined, whilst also not darkening it in the same way as something like normal oil would. After 30 minutes of drying time, that's the main part of the armour pretty much complete and it's already looking great. At this point, it's worth mentioning that if edge highlighting isn't your thing, now is a great time for some dry brushing. I'm firstly using Flash Gitz Yellow to bring some brightness back to the armour. And then the aptly named Dawn Yellow on the very sharpest points and edges. Doing this now means that we don't accidentally dry brush onto any other areas that we'll be painting later. Speaking of which, for all the black details, I'm using 2 thin layers of Abaddon Black. I'm just being extra careful around that yellow armour. Seeing as we painted it with contrast paint and then a shade, tidying up mistakes will be quite tricky compared to normal. So a little extra patience here will go a long way. Next up, time for some metallics. For all the dark silver details, I'm using Iron Warriors. Feel free to use something like Leadbelcher or Iron Hand Steel if you're after a brighter colour. And once again, be as careful as you can when applying this near that yellow armour. For all the gold, brass areas, I'm using Canoptech Alloy. So that's just the crest above the head and the back end of the Fist of Dawn. But there are some other trinkets and bits dotted around the model that you may choose to pick out of this colour too. Being a layer paint, this is quite thin though, so you may need to apply an extra layer to normal, but that's totally fine. Being an epic hero, this guy is absolutely covered in purity seals. For them, I'm using Flayed One Flesh. There's purity seals on the shield too, but don't worry, we'll get to that when we paint it later. This is another thin paint, so take your time, keep your layers thin, and make sure you let each layer dry before adding any more paint. For the big Crux Terminatus on the left shoulder and knee pad, I'm using Corax White. Extra point if you've managed to keep this area in that Wraithbone undercoat until now. If so, this will apply super nicely. If not, you might just need to apply an extra layer or 2. Awesome stuff. Next up, I'm painting the Fist of Dawn's handle and any other brown details using Rhinox Hide. Nice and easy. For the Purity Seal wax, I'm using one of my all-time favourite paints, Screamer Pink. Lots of colours work really nicely for Purity Seal wax, including all sorts of different reds and purples, but I really like this one. If my count is right, there's 4 different Purity Seals on Lysander's body, so take your time carefully picking them out. With that done, we're making real progress with this guy now, just a few more quick base coats to go before shading. For the central pipe under the helmet, I'm using Mephiston Red. And for his tactical rock, I'm using Storm Vermin Fur to match the box art. But feel free to use any other paint you fancy so he fits in with the rest of your army's bases. Shading time! Next up, I'm using Targor Rage Shade to shade everything except the yellow armour as I want to keep that really vibrant. Targor Rayshade has a dark tone with a reddish purple hue, which means it works really well on most things and contrasts super nicely against that yellow armour. But if you want more traditional shadows instead, Norn Oil or Agrax Earthshade are some great alternatives. With that shade dry, all that's left to paint are the eye lenses. Now there are loads of ways to do this, but today I'm using the classic contrast paint eye lens technique. I'm starting by painting the centre of each eye using Corax White, and then applying Frost Art over the top to create this super neat effect. Looks awesome, and that concludes the main body sub-assembly. Up next, the shield. For the main large part of the shield, I'm base coating it with Rhinox hide. I'm not too worried about being careful here, I'm just making sure there's a nice solid colour of brown before moving on. For the Aquila, I'm using Pallid Witch Flesh. Even though the other purity seals on the model are painted with this, I've got a different paint in mind for the ones on the shield, and we'll get to that soon. But first, there's a few more base coats to get through. Next, I'm using Abaddon Black for the Imperial Fist symbol and the back of the shield too. With that done, let's speed through the next few base coats. For the silver areas like the trim, I'm using Iron Warriors. Screamer Pink once again for the Purity Seal wax. Corax White for the Purity Seal cloth and these dots on the back of the shield. Kinoptech Alloy for the skull and crest around it. And finally, I'm using Athematic Blue over the top of the white dots to create this really neat glowing effect. And there we go, Lysander's shield Rampart is fully base coated and ready for shading. I'm going back to Targor Rayshade once again for this part, using it as an all-over shade. With that done and dry, I'm dry brushing the front of the shield lightly using Screaming Skull. All that's left is that huge cloak. To kick us off here, I'm base coating the entire back of the cloak using Khorne Red. Because I'm applying this over a bright undercoat, I'll need to add a couple thin layers to get a nice solid colour. With that done, I'm painting this white cloth section using Corax White. Be as careful as you can here not to get any of this onto the red section that we just added. Next, I'm painting all the gold brass details using Kinoptech Alloy. These are only small sections, so it shouldn't take you too long, just be careful not to make any mistakes. With that done, I'm revisiting my trusty Targor Rayshade to shade the entire back of the cloak. But this time, I'm mixing in some Lamia Medium to help it better flow over such a large, flat surface. Remember, we haven't painted the other side of the cloak yet, so don't apply this to that part. And there we go, one nicely defined cloak. If you're happy with the way this looks, by all means leave it here. But I'd like to bring some colour back to it with some dry brushing. I'm finishing off my cloak with Wild Rider Red, dry brushing the very tips and edges of the cloak. You could instead use a different red here to achieve a different effect, but that's totally up to you. And with that done, we're left with this. I'm really happy with this effect, and I think it's just such an easy way to paint awesome looking cloaks. Before we get this attached to Lysander though, we just need to finish up some other details. For the Imperial Fist insignia, I'm using Abaddon Black. I'm leaving the inside of the cloak in that Wraithbone undercoat, and if you've got any other colours onto it by mistake like me, simply tidy up now with Wraithbone from the pot before moving on. And for the shoulder pad, I'm using Imperial Fist and Cassandora Yellow, just like how we did the rest of the armour. Nice and easy. And with that done, now for the really fun bit. Let's put all these sub-assemblies together to reveal Darnif Lysander of the Imperial Fists. If you wanted to, you could totally skip straight to basing and this guy would be more than ready for the gaming table. But seeing as this guy is a character after all, I'm going to take him to the next level with some highlights. Stick around if you're interested. Now, the armour has already been highlighted with a series of dry brushes that we did earlier. But now I'm being a little extra precise and I'm adding some rough edge highlights using Dawn Yellow. I'm not worried about being too neat here, I'm just picking out the very sharpest edges. Depending on what sort of look you want, at this point you could add some chipping using Doomball Brown over the top of the Dawn Yellow. This all depends on whether you want a more factory new or Battle Worn feel to your mini. You can use a small layer brush for this to carefully apply the paint where you want it, or you can really lean into the battle damage look and even use a sponge to apply some weathering. It's up to you. While you're using Doomball Brown, you can also apply an edge highlight to the other Rhinox hide areas across the mini, like the shield. For all the metallic areas, I'm highlighting them using Stormhost Silver. Nice and simple, but this will bring back some well-needed shine to all the silver and gold areas. And for the final highlight, I'm using Pink Horror to highlight all the Purity Seal wax. This may seem like a pretty insignificant area to highlight, but I find that it really helps to make these details pop. And blammo, I've gone ahead and based him, and now Darnif Lysander is not only ready to lead the Imperial Fist into battle, but he's going to look good while he does it too. I've gone with a snowy base for my model, which is one of my favourites, but you can base him however you like. Well, that's how to paint Darnif Lysander. Hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I have, and learned everything you need to know about painting this truly awesome miniature. Anyway, that's all from me. So in the meantime, if you're looking for more tutorials, tips or tricks, you can check out some of the other videos on the Warhammer YouTube channel. Or alternatively to that, you can go to a Warhammer store where our friendly staff are always happy to help. Thanks again for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.